reconciliation, boring to some people. Make it more boring for people who are rich enough and fortunate enough not to be on Medicaid. But Medicaid is at the center of the Republican challenge to pass reconciliation. You need to focus on it for the substance of the politics, everybody. So let me tell you a few things that are going on. First of all, 110. Politico is on this, and Congressman and his colleagues and leadership in the White House are struggling to say, how are we going to end up on Medicare? This is actually not from Politico. It's from something called Politico Pro. Not familiar with that, but Politico Pro. GOPI's Medicaid work requirements for every state. The work requirements have gotten support from moderates and blue states who oppose deeper cuts to Medicaid. So limiting the spending by saying if you're not working, you're not going to get Medicaid. Not clear how popular that would be with Congress or with voters or how much money it would save, but that's something that's being discussed. On the political side, 109, four House members are being targeted now, announced this morning in a Washington Post item, by the DNC with town halls in their districts, digital ads, texts and calls, and other media meant to be shared by voters themselves in partnership with the DCCC. They're targeting, let's see, a guy named Brian Fitzpatrick, Don Bacon, Tom Barrett, and then apparently one of the four targets is our guest host today, Mike Lawler. Finally, as there's lots of conversations between more moderate House Republicans, particularly who represent districts that might have voted for Kamala Harris or purple districts, 107, there's apparently a group of Congress persons who are Republican, led by David Vallada, who from California, whose district, according to Playbook, is home to the most Medicaid recipients of any Republican in the country. And they say he's on a text chain with an active text chat running throughout the day with a dozen or so lawmakers who are also concerned about cuts to Medicaid to pay for the Republican bill. First of all, Congressman Lawler, are you on this text chain?
Yes.
Yes, you are. So, like, what's the point?
It's not on Signal, is it? No.
Yeah.
No, it's not Signal.
What's the point? What purpose does that text chain serve?
Look, there's a whole group of us that have been very clear with leadership, very clear with the White House. And by the way, the president agrees with us on this issue. We are not cutting Medicaid for eligible recipients, period. Full stop.
Not $1 and no work requirements. No work requirements.
No additional
work requirements.
Work requirements for able-bodied adults without dependents. Frankly, it's something Bill Clinton championed. It's something Democrats used to embrace.
Will that save money if it's implemented?
About $200 billion.
Okay, but what are those people supposed to do for health care?
Well, they're supposed to find a job.
Well, I just want to try to understand this. You say we want work requirements, but one of two things will happen: either they'll work, and you still have to pay the Medicaid, so you're not saving any money, or they won't work and you cut off their Medicaid and you save money, but then they're not getting health care, right? It's one of those two.
Yeah. Mark, at the end of the day, I think most people recognize Medicaid is a means-tested program. Yeah. And if people are in need of Medicaid, we want to provide it to them. We want to protect those in the IDD community. We want to protect our seniors. We want to protect children. We want to protect single mothers. But if you are milking the system, if you are scamming the system, if you are refusing to work, which is we do have a significant population there that is choosing not to work, and some of that is post-COVID. We saw the impact that had on the workforce. We saw the impact of people choosing not to go back into the workforce. The bottom line here is we want to make sure that the system is protected. It is a massive system across the entirety of the federal government and in our states. And states like New York, for instance, are spending 83% more on Medicaid than the average of the other 49 states. And so what I've said I'm open to is a few things. Number one, eligibility verification. Making sure that people are actually eligible to receive Medicaid benefits. Joe Biden expanded that.
I'm sorry, just stop you on that one. Is that to save money or just to make the system fair?
Well, it's to make sure that somebody who is not eligible is not remaining on the system for an
Right,
entire year.
But you're not
So
positing that
under
as
Joe
as a way to
Biden,
save. But you're not positing that as a way to save significant money. You're positing that because the system shouldn't reward people who aren't doing the right
no,
thing, right?
you are actually, again, there are people on the system that should not actually be receiving benefits. Okay, so when you have what Joe Biden did was expand out the eligibility verification to an annual basis. And as a result, you had people who were not eligible collecting benefits for an entire year. All right, it is costing the system hundreds of billions of dollars. So eligibility verification, speeding up that time frame to require verification to make sure that people are not staying on the system longer than they are entitled to. Everybody should support that. Why would you want somebody taking funds away from those who actually need it when they're not actually eligible for the system? So eligibility verification is one. Two is citizenship verification for illegal immigrants. In New York, they're spending $1.2 billion on illegal immigrants to get Medicaid benefits. That's wrong. And I think across the country, Americans would agree that is not a good use of taxpayer money. So citizenship verification for illegal immigrants is something that I think there's broad consensus within the conference. And then work requirements. We want people who need these vital programs to be able to have access to them. But if you have people who are refusing to work that could easily get a job, with health care benefits, say, they should do so. If you're choosing not to, if you're refusing to go work, and you are able-bodied and you don't have dependent children, that is not fair to others across this country, and it's certainly not fair to those who rely on this critical program. The challenge we have, Mark, over the next decade, we're going to spend $86 trillion in federal spending across the entirety of the federal government. And we're talking about potentially $1.5 trillion in savings over that 10-year period. That is 1.7% of total federal spending. That's what we're talking about. The question to me is not the 880 out of E&C. The question is 218. What can you build consensus on to get to 218? I've been very clear. I do not support changing FMAP. I do not support lowering the federal share of Medicaid from 50% to 45%. I don't support per capita caps. I don't support block grants. I don't support dish cuts. I don't support work requirements on the disabled. These are the things where I've been very clear with leadership and the White House that I absolutely will not support, period.
Dan, you've not been accidentally added to that text chain, so you don't have the same visibility into this.
There's no press on this text chain.
But at least not that you know. Dan, if the congressman gets his way on Medicaid, I don't see how they could possibly make real cuts in the overall deficit.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, that if you add up what he just said, it doesn't get near the 800 billion that they're trying to target out of energy and commerce to meet the goal. And remember, the fight was just 1.5 trillion. Then they kind of moved the bar down to 1 trillion, which became aspirational. Now, 200 billion is pretty short of 800 billion. We keep saying it. Like, they kept punting and saying, like, we'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. Let's just get closer to the goal line. Like, they're inside the red zone now. And now you have to write the text. There are staff sitting there literally writing text. You circulate it. And this is where members start saying, wait a second, like, I am not okay with this. And as Democrats, like, we will have a field day as long as these divisions are so out in the open, because the only way you get to what the Freedom Caucus wants, and others even in the Senate, is to ultimately get people off of this, to make real cuts to real services. It's the only way that you can achieve the 800 billion. So, people like Congressman Lawler representing their district, they're making the fight. And there are people on the other end. I think our party's way more unified than their party, and you always want to be in a fight with the unified party.
Hey, want to be part of the two-way community all the time? Hit the subscribe button. Great video clips like this, plus conversations like no other, full episodes and more, always available on this channel. You got to hit subscribe to never miss a thing.